You would think that people like David Robinson and these top-notch athletes would just have gotten it somewhere along the way. But what's been fascinating is to see the physical genius of these individuals, but they're just like you and I. They're just like you and I. They have fears, they have doubts, and they're trying to get better, and they want to know, what can I do to get better? I've seen some amazing things. I've seen people do things that others of us just dream about. It was fascinating to watch the Spurs as they came on. They were the worst in the league. 2 years later, they win it all. Of course, Tim Duncan had a whole lot to do with that. But to see worst to first, to see a guy that wasn't even on the PGA Tour go out and win a victory after we did some things together. And again, all I did was just try to flip a switch to help a guy get to the Olympics and watch him compete as an Olympian, to work with several national championship teams and just watch him romp through and go to win the national championship. It's been fascinating sitting on the sideline watching these people perform to the highest of their capabilities. That's my job, to help people succeed, to be the best they can be, to teach people to reach their fullest potential. And that's the platform I'm coming from tonight. I'm in the business of success. And I want to talk to you tonight about success. And I want to talk to you tonight about a topic that so many of us don't talk about, and especially coaches who I talk with on a daily basis. And that is, why does success let us down? Isn't that amazing? Let me start with a reading from a guy named James Kavanaugh. I read this a couple years ago, and it just stopped me cold in my tracks. It's called Somewhere Along the Way. Somewhere along the way, a persistent voice taught me I was in competition with every other man in the world. I listened carefully and learned the lesson well. It was not enough to find a loving wife and have average happy kids, to see a sunrise and wonder at an eclipsing moon, to enjoy a meal and catch a trout in a silent silver river, to picnic in a meadow at the top of a mountain, or ride horses along the rim of a hidden lake, to laugh like a child at midnight and still wonder about falling stars. No, it was only enough to be admired and powerful and to rush from one success to another, to barely see faces or hear voices, to ignore beauty and forget about music, to reduce everything and everybody to a stereo color pattern on the way to some new triumph, to rest in no victory but to create new and more demanding goals, even as I seemed to succeed, until finally I was estranged and exhausted, victorious and joyless, successful but ready to abandon life. Then somewhere along the way, I remembered the laugh of a child I once knew. I saw a familiar boy wandering joyfully in the woods. I felt a heart pounding with excitement at the birth of a new day, until I was in competition with no one and life was clear again somewhere along the way. Why do so many successful men and women, seem to be so unhappy, so empty, and so unfulfilled? Let me ask that again. Why are so many successful people so unhappy, so empty, unsatisfied, and unfulfilled? You ever wonder about that? You ever wonder about it in your life? As you seek this thing and you accomplish this goal and you find that after you do it, its meaning wasn't quite what you thought it would be. So we move again to the next one and we think, well, maybe that one will solve the issue that's somewhere in my heart. My contention is that many of us and many of those people that we know that seem to be so unhappy, yet so success-driven, somewhere along the way they got into the wrong race, the wrong game. Let me explain it this way. When I was a professor at the University of Kansas, one of the theses that my students did was very eye-opening in this area. He studied 386 Little League baseball players from Kansas City, the 3-2 league, the best league. And he asked each of these kids, there were 12 per team, he asked each of these kids 3 questions.